Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge is a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services with a primary marketing focus on the Port of Anchorage, providing their customers with quality-based service specifically tailored to their needs.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Looking at warnings, we've got high wind warnings out that start tonight and continue through tomorrow for Juneau, Douglas, and Admiralty Island. That's general area here in the shaded zone. Look for wind gusts 50 to 60, in some cases over 60 miles per hour. Out of the north-northeast, those will be kicking in. Winds already picking up in this area and continue to increase as a pretty good thrust of Arctic air pushes southward across the area there. No other warnings or advisories around the state, just there in the northern southeast coast due to the winds and Arctic outflow. Satellite imagery, thin band of clouds right through here, provided some light snow from McGrath area back up through here. On down, just some flurries in across the Copper River Basin zone. And then you can see showers early on diminish this afternoon, some scattered rain and snow showers, but drying out now as the colder, drier air pushes southward, and the low to the south slides inland. And some moisture here, kind of a weak low developed as across the Alaska Peninsula, but not much in the way of any moisture. A few snow showers look like over northeast Bristol Bay on the radar, possibly up into the southern Alaska Range, the Aleutian Range in those areas, but not much here, at least at Kodiak State Airport, and clearing out back along the coast ahead of the next front, just Cirrus reaching Nunivak Island. Higher deck stuff through here, and getting a little lower and thicker as you get toward the Pribilofs. And then storm warnings out for tonight ahead of this front, still strong enough to provide 50 to 55 knot winds across the central Aleutians on up into the southern and possibly central Bering Sea areas for tonight. But that system will weaken enough that will drop off to gales possibly late tonight and further diminish tomorrow. On the it starts out looking pretty good here, but already you can tell it's beginning to get more holes in the cloudiness and not looking quite as impressive as it did early on, but still strong enough for those storm warnings out for tonight. And nothing but high pressure here expected to hold over the interior. Today, a little bit of a gradient here. Some higher elevations over the inland areas, such as Indian Mountain, seeing gusts up to 40 miles an hour out of the east-northeast today. Lighter winds, temperatures below zero over the upper Yukon Valley and into the North Slope. Some patchy fog, nothing too serious up here along the Arctic coast on the east side. And then remnants of a weak front that dissipated along the coast last night still provided a few light flurries or snow showers earlier today. That's about it. Now this next system spreading some moisture in, initially high-level clouds that'll be gradually lowering in time here. And here's this trough that swung down out of the Bristol Bay area and kind of spun up a weak low right in this area, but that's dissipating now. Low pressure in the Gulf of Alaska here provided some rain in Cordova, and gusty winds, Yakutat, and even gustier winds here over the northern panhandle. And again, storm warnings out for places like Stevens Passage tonight and tomorrow. Gusts 65 knots out of some of the bays and passes over the northern panhandle. Temperatures could drop low enough for freezing spray. Lynn Canal possibly tomorrow. On the forecast for tonight, could be a few flurries here over the Wrangell Mountains or the Talkeetna Mountains, and but nothing too significant at all. Watching this area of moisture tending to increase in time here as this low circulates moisture back in from the east to west. So look for increasing chances of rain or snow, Kodiak Island, or snow up along the coastal areas of the Kenai Peninsula, possibly on up into western Prince William Sound. Not so much tonight, but probably tomorrow. And most of this moisture already will be out of the area of the Panhandle with just this very tight gradient, strong area high pressure, two centers there, over 31 inches. That's why they're shaded red, 1,051 millibars, just a shade over 31 inches, which is where most altimeters stop at 31 inches. Don't read much higher than that. Out to the west, this front bringing the storms into the central Aleutians, southern Bering Sea areas with a narrow band of rain, but you can see tomorrow that front really weakens considerably. So not only lose the storms, lose the gales, and have trouble even holding on to some small craft advisories, but there'll still be some wind breezes with that. And then this area of rain and snow, again, tending to get a little more expansive as the day wears on tomorrow. Some of that could slip on into southern Cook Inlet and possibly reach the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range down to the south there. More likely, though, it would be the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula and possibly trying to get up into western Prince William Sound, and then a more extensive area holding off the coast here. Of course, nothing over the northern Panhandle. Those strong outflow winds keeping it dry and colder there across the northern areas. Again, gusts up to 65 knots in some of the channeled bays and passes here in the north with the high wind warnings out through tomorrow. And then this system to the south here begins to nudge some moisture and milder air northward, overrunning that colder air. So look for some mixed precipitation chances to increase here over the southern southeast coast late tomorrow and especially into tomorrow night. Otherwise, clear and cold, below zero over the interior areas, all the way down to Bristol Bay. Variable cloudiness here in the west. Most of this moisture taking off to the north and keeping it dry. Possibly St. Lawrence Island, even the Pribilofs not seeing much at all, and just some clouds up along the coast with partly to mostly cloudy skies or variably cloudy here. Eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay, mostly clear, light winds there. Some of this moisture might try to spill in, but probably won't, not much will make it. And then for Sunday, it looks high pressure here, keeping it mostly clear across much of the area, northward to the eastern Arctic coast. Got a weak trough here swinging in from the west-southwest, so that may kick those winds up southwest, maybe up to 20 knots over the Chukchi Sea areas, possibly as far north as Point Lay. That's about it. Could be a band of light snow and fog with that feature, and otherwise just some good high pressure here over southern Alaska, back down to about 1,034 millibars, and rain and snow with another system out there over the Aleutians. And this system sliding eastward here, bringing a chance of moisture to the Panhandle. Temperatures today, lower 20s over northern Cook Inlet area at Anchorage, 16 up at Talkeetna, 3 degrees both at Snowshoe Lake and over at Gulkana, but mid-30s there, 35 Valdez and a 34 at Yakutat. Over the Panhandle, temperatures look like this afternoon, ranging from 25 at Skagway to 36 at Port Alexander, up to the lower 40s there at Metlakatla with 41, 34 as I mentioned in Yakutat, and up in the Tanana Valley, -1 Fairbanks and a 7 at Delta. But Eagle down to 26 below. These are all 4 p.m. temperatures, 27 below at Fort Yukon, 4 degrees above over at Tanana. Bettles at -3, 0 at Anatuvik, but Arctic Village, cold spot this afternoon, 31 below 0, and a -9 both at Kaktovik and Barrow, with Point Lay at 5 above, and in the 10 to 15 or a little milder degree range here over the northwest valleys, but Selawik at -4 and Ambler at 3, 20 degrees in Nome, McGrath 12, 18 at Sleepmute, Bethel up to 22 and a 30-degree reading there at Macoriac, 34 at Gamble. And lows for tonight, again, quite cold, probably colder than what these readings are showing, with Temperatures dropping probably down to the minus 20 to 30 degree below range, with the 0 degree isotherm back to the west, cutting up into the western Arctic coast there. Still looking a little milder, but down into the teens, almost out to the coastline, roughly near 20 degrees. Nunivak Island into the mid-20s for St. Lawrence Island, and 30s down over the Aleutians and the Bering Sea, with the panhandle kind of varying from upper 20s to mid to upper 30s. And for the highs tomorrow, upper 30s here to lower 40s possibly. Cooler though as the day wears on with the inflow of Arctic air. Highs here over the eastern areas, teens to 20s below zero, and back to the west here looking below freezing right out to the coastline, with teens over the inland areas to single numbers farther east, and 30s to lower 40s over the Aleutians. Flying weather tomorrow in the afternoon, starting out pretty good VFR here, or will be VFR, all the way down to the southern areas, but this area becoming more marginal with time, especially into the afternoon with the moisture from that next system pushing northward. And then that stuff coming back from the east, coming up to the Kenai Peninsula, east side of Kodiak Island, spilling across the Barren Islands, maybe into Kamishak Bay. Could be some marginal VFR, and some marginal VFR may make it northward into western Prince William Sound. IFR here, St. Lawrence Island, and to the south with marginal VFR down into the central Aleutians. Anaktuvuk looks VFR tomorrow, both entrances, as does Adigan. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, good VFR, both sides, although Lake Clark could possibly see a chance of some marginal VFR on that eastern entrance, possibly late in the day. It's just a threat, but the chance does exist. And for Rainy, VFR east and west and through the pass. For windy, same forecast, VFR. Isabel, good VFR. Mentasta, wide open. Tanita, VFR. Portage, VFR, possibly becoming marginal VFR. East entrance, especially the later in the day, the greater the chance. And for Chilkoot and White, though, VFR, but turbulent with the gusty winds. And the freezing levels here, we've got 2,000 to 4,000 feet piercing northward with that frontal boundary out here. 2,000 feet all the way up to St. Lawrence Island, 4,000 feet right on the heels of that across St. Matthew Island, but at the surface all the way down now south of Bristol Bay, right across Kodiak Island and hugging the remainder of the coastline. Freezing level, or icing from the freezing level to about 12,000 feet here. Moderate stuff staying south, could get some light isolated moderate rime up into the southern southeast coast late tomorrow, and then with that moisture pulling westward here in across the Kenai Peninsula, southern areas, Kodiak Island, Barrens into Kamishak Bay, and then a narrow swath out there with that ever weakening frontal system. Winds aloft showing how that frontal system lies up or aligns with becomes parallel to the flow south to north, so really not going to make much eastward progress. Upper level ridging to the east of that, and actually a band breaking off coming in from the northwest here, wrapping around this low in the Gulf of Alaska, but 150 knot northwest jet here with the Arctic jet and this jet kind of combining. Pretty strong northwesterlies there across the southern southeast coast, and upper high pressure, colder temperatures up there for the northeast interior. 9,000 feet show 20 knot easterlies, picking up a little bit here, 30 to 35 knots on the southern coast as this low begins to edge northward, and then the gradient between the high ridge to the north across Canada. The main center up here over the northeast interior. Southerlies 35 to 55 knots just to the west of the Bering Strait and St. Lawrence Island. 3,000 feet, much the same pattern. Wind speeds 40 to 50 knots here. Again, near or just west of St. Lawrence Island, should be west of the Bering Strait, but still looking at some brisk easterlies, 20 to 30 knots here in areas across the interior, but much lighter to the north across the upper Yukon Flats areas, Brooks Range to the Arctic coast, and easterlies here carrying that moisture westward right into Kodiak Island, and again possibly in the Kenai Peninsula areas. Maybe to northeast here for it to get much farther up into Prince William Sound, but there's a possibility some of that could slip on up into Passage Canal. High pressure, light winds, eastern central Aleutians, southwest 25 across the Shimia-Attu area. And for turbulence, again, maybe some moderate chop there, better chances on the western side of St. Lawrence Island, but I think the Bering Strait, just light isolated moderate chop. That'll extend down across Nunivak Island part and the Yukon Delta coast. Also light to isolated moderate chop for the central eastern Alaska range, down and across the Talkeetnas, southeastward across the Panhandle into Dixon Entrance. And when I return with the forecasts, I'll return after the break with the marine forecasts.
Good evening. I'm Mary O'Connor with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health in Anchorage. This evening, we are honored to have on our show Miss Erica Bennett, who has an interesting resume with some different types of flying. Erica manages to have a successful flying career. She's raising a family, she flies for fun, and she has time to give back to the aviation community. Erica, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Can you start by telling us what first got you interested in aviation?
Well, I would have to give all my credit to my father. Yes, he was a pilot. He started in World War II, so I grew up in an aviation family. Although I didn't grow up in the back of a Super Cub like a lot of other kids did, we did have a couple of airplanes in our family. And I would love to have said I learned how to fly in them. But back when I was a preteen, teenager, I wasn't that interested in flying. I loved to ride along. I didn't actually get my license until I was 24 years old. And then I had ridden in the back of a friend's Super Cub and realized how much fun it was. And then it dawned on me that, hey, this is something I can do. And 3 weeks later, I started flying lessons. So it was, the passion was instilled early, and it kicked in a little late.
Very good. Would you call your father a role model then, or a mentor? I bet he was excited when you finally decided to take it up yourself.
He said it was about time. And he was a good role model, very good role, very meticulous man. He was a jet pilot for the Navy and various other aircraft. Very, very meticulous and very safe. He was a very, very good mentor because I would take what I'd learned that day and go hangar talk with my dad, and he'd talk about what similar things he had going on in his world. So although we were flying a little bit different aircraft and I was taking my flying a different direction than the military, it was always something we had in common.
Very cool. Do you have any advice for people who maybe they thought about being a pilot when they were 12, but they didn't get around to it until later in life? In their 20s or 30s or later?
That's never too late. Absolutely. I've seen, actually run across several ladies who have just started getting their license in their 30s and their 50s just because they always thought about it, and now they've decided it's time. And all I can say is just do it. I know finances can be a problem, and it is an expensive hobby unless you get into a flying club or have a friend or actually have an airplane husband that flies. But if there's even an inkling, I would just go ahead and start the process and see how it fits. Never hurts to try.
What do you think that aviation has done for you as a person?
As a person, it's opened up an entirely new world of freedom. Being able to be in complete control of an aircraft, either privately and or commercially. Commercially, there's a lot of responsibility involved, and I like that. And I used to do tours, and I really enjoy showing off Alaska, and using an aviation platform was really fun. So it's exhilarating, and it's just very deeply satisfying to complete a flight and have absolutely nothing go wrong, or at least know what to do when everything does go wrong. So it's just a neat career.
You've done a lot of different types of flying. Can you tell us what your favorite type of flying is?
That's a hard one because the variety has, each has their own unique pluses. I liked flying Bush, Alaska with freight because the boxes really didn't care, and I was free to turn around without it in a whole lot of pressure. The flying tours around Denali was exhilarating on a moment-by-moment basis, and to watch my passengers' faces when they got on and off the airplane was very satisfying. And I now fly part-time for BP and ConocoPhillips through shared services in a Twin Otter and a Casa 212. And those are challenging because of the weather and fun because of the numerous amounts of instrument approaches that I can get in one day. A lot of takeoffs and landings. So I like it all. So I can't say there's one favorite.
Do you have a favorite aircraft to fly?
Ooh. Well, right now I'd have to say it is the Twin Otter. I haven't floated a whole lot, but what it's capable of is mind-blowing, and I haven't been able to use it to its full extent yet, but it's a fun airplane.
Very good. Thank you so much for your time. You're truly an inspiration to young women and folks everywhere in Alaska.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you on the show, and we look forward to having you next time.
Okay.
Thank you. This program is brought to you by the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and Alaska Public Media. If you enjoyed the program, I encourage you to support both of these organizations by sharing your permanent fund dividend through Pick, Click, Give. Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, thank you for joining us on Hangar Flying. Fly safely.
Welcome back. Sea ice, still with the south to north flow, expect to continue. Seen some changes come up by Sunday, become more of an easterly flow here, so that'll begin to thicken up, and colder temperatures should begin to expand, at least in the northern Bering Sea, the sea ice back to the south and southwest a little bit, but that won't be until probably late Sunday and into the first of next week. Over the southeast coast here, storm warnings out, as I mentioned, Stevens Passage, Lynn Canal, strongest winds, gusts, higher gusts up to 65 knots up here, freezing spray, northeasterlies, pretty brisk all the way down, some gales, gale force gusts coming out of the bays along the coast as well, all from the northeast. Then on Sunday, possible gales here, tightening of the gradient, storm to the south, easterlies 30 knots to northeast 30, 35 knot gales, and northeast 35 dropping back to 25, or as low as 20 knots, but still some higher gusts coming out of the bays. And for south central Alaska tomorrow, Cook Inlet 10 to 15 knot northerlies, north 20 knots for the Barren Islands, or for Kamishak Bay, northeast 20 for the Barren Islands. Same thing here down Chillicothe Strait and the zones there, marine zones on the east side of Kodiak Island. Small craft advisories, North Gulf Coast, a little lighter in Prince William Sound. And then for Sunday, westerlies could get gale force there in Passage Canal during the day on Sunday, otherwise 20 knots. That'd be from the northwest, well, the west for Passage Canal, and otherwise kind of the north to northwest for Prince William Sound. Northwesterlies 25 knots, North Gulf Coast down across the Barrens, all the way back up into Kamishak Bay, and then lighter northwesterlies here at about 20 for Kodiak Island, 15 to 20 knot northerlies for Cook Inlet. Bristol Bay, northeast at 15, northeast 20, Sitkinak over to Chignik, easterlies at about 10 there on the south side of the Alaska Peninsula, southeast 15 on the Bering Sea side. And then for Sunday, northeast at 10 there for Bristol Bay. Same thing here, Sitkinak over to Chignik. Easterlies 25 knots on the Pacific side of the peninsula. Southeast 20 there on the Bering Sea side. And for the eastern Aleutians, southeast winds at about 15 to 20 knots, give or take, a little lighter there south of Nunivak Island, Unalaska Island, sorry about that. Becoming more light and variable here with that weakening frontal boundary. Things getting lighter quite rapidly after the storms you'll see tonight. Much lighter winds in store for tomorrow and tomorrow afternoon. Southeasterlies 15 to 20 out to the west. And then on Sunday, they pick up all areas and become more southeasterly with more of a south to southeast direction here to the west, while areas here to the east will be more of an east to southeast direction. But 25 to 30 knots here in the east, and about the same as far as wind speed goes for those western zones. For the southwest coast, southeast, lightest here, south of Nunivak Island, picking up speed though as you get up to St. Lawrence Island, 30 knots, 25 knots from the northern Bering Sea. Pribilof, south 20, seas 7 feet. And for Sunday, east winds at 20 knots with 7-foot seas there for both St. Paul and St. George. Southeast here for the northern Bering Sea at about the same speed, and 15-knot winds, not too strong at all here for the southwest coast, but still a southeast direction. But higher pressure really laying the winds down for St. Lawrence Island, the way it looks at this point in time anyway. Variable to westerly, 5 to 10 knots with seas coming down. On the Arctic coast, not too bad wind-wise on the east side there for tomorrow anyway, 5 to 10 knots from the southeast. More of a southerly direction or drift to the winds here, 10 to 15 on the west side, picking up to 30 knots, Cape Lisburne, Point Hope, with brisk wind advisories all the way down to the Bering Strait. Then on Sunday, pick the winds up a little bit, east-southeast, 15 to 20 knots there on the eastern coast. Central coast, south 15, becoming southwesterly. Again, we have a trough swinging up, kind of rotating northeastward there. Could kick these winds up to 20 knots over the Chukchi Sea, Kotzebue Sound areas into the Cape Lisburne, Point Hope areas, and then dropping back, especially from Point Lay on up, definitely nothing higher than 15 knots. For the forecast tonight, strong high pressure settling in over the northern panhandle with high pressure really dominating just about all of interior Alaska, right on down into Bristol Bay, but this circulation here keeping the chances of snow going along the coast or some form of precipitation, rain or snow, Kodiak Island up to along the coastal areas of the Kenai Peninsula, maybe some flurries up inland, but nothing significant. Storm warnings tonight, southern Bering Sea down across the central Aleutians, and storm warnings, northern panhandle, Stevens Passage, Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, gusts 65 knots, and the high wind warnings out for the Juneau, Douglas, Admiralty Island areas starting tonight, continuing through tomorrow. This very tight gradient, strong high pressure, and that continues there into tomorrow with
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.